TGIF. Hey guys, could you have someone on to talk about the influence of religious values in today's society? The right always talks about so-called Judeo-Christian values, even though it is clear every day that we really live in a society with values centered on capitalism and neoliberalism, which are somewhat incompatible with Judeo-Christian philosophy. I really think that this was just Islamophobic dog whistling, and I'm getting pissed every time Ben Shapiro or even Dave Rubin talk about it. Love the show, left is best. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. And again, I think that it's one of the things that was so bad about new atheism as a discourse, and please understand that this is not...
This is an attack on individual people that don't believe in God.
Indeed. And even though I don't identify as an atheist, which I understand still triggers some people, especially when I'm reading this book, I get a sense of like who a lot of my prime intellectual influences are, even if I wasn't conscious. And Cornel West is a Christian, calls himself a Christian socialist, so he is religious, and he's probably the person I admire most. But, I don't know, Marx, Adolf Reed, I mean, atheists are great, is the point. And critical...
Do a lot of good work.
Atheists have done a lot of tremendous work, which more and more people are noticing. And the historical task of atheism to actually explain how religious narratives track other societal political hierarchies or block the inquiries and discoveries of science is not only correct, but like noble. But the new atheist narrative that was basically a proxy for anti-Muslim politics and Western chauvinism and was also so just empirically inaccurate about religion. And this is an anthropological statement. Again, I don't care. Believe whatever the hell you believe. But the notion that you cannot understand that there is not one version of Christianity, there's not one version of Buddhism, there's not one version of Islam. This is both literally true geographically in terms of how these things change from country to country and culture to culture, but in terms of the ideology that they promote. And I want to give Cory Booker some props here, because the reality is that even though things are changing, particularly in certain parts of the country, candidates are still going to have to pay their respects to religion. And a lot of people also, again, I tend to take people at their word. I remember Christopher Hitchens did a lot of like, I secretly think Obama's an atheist. I don't know why I'm doing a Gorka for him, but it was like, I don't know, Chris, like I get that that's your way of complimenting him, but Barack Obama says he's a Christian. So I tend to go with what people say about themselves, right? So I think Cory Booker is a religious person. I don't even know if he's actually necessarily... I thought he almost seemed more like kind of like general New Age guy, but maybe he identifies as a Christian. I don't even mean that as an insult. I mean he's a positive quotes guy. But this answer on what religion means in public life, I will never support Cory Booker. All the usual problems with him, blah blah blah. Let's index those. If more people could answer this question like this would do a lot of good in our society.
I am a pastor here in town, and in my faith tradition, we keep partisan politics out of the pulpit.
Yes, sir.
But as a citizen and a person of faith, I do have my own opinions. And I find President Trump's whole demeanor and most of his policies to be abhorrent, or should be, to persons of faith. So I would like to ask you, can you share with us how your own faith would influence you as president?
God, thank you for that question. So I just want to say up front that I'm a person that often says that before you tell me about your religion, show it to me in how you treat other people.
Pause it. And frankly, before you tell me about your atheism, show me how you treat other people.
I was raised in a church where my mom taught Sunday school, and I'll never forget learning that verse, that faith without works is dead. And I'll tell you what, I feel like I'm in church right now. And I'll tell you what, this is what often bothers. I would rather hang out with a nice atheist than a mean Christian any day of the week. And so thank you for asking me about my faith. You asked, and I will share. The foundation of my life was raising with a faith in God. But I was taught that faith demands, first and foremost, humility before God. That you look at your brother and sister, regardless of their faith, regardless of their background, with a conviction of love. Love thy neighbor. And love is not easy. And it really bothers me that when folks think that being loving or kind, I tell you, To be strong, you don't need to be cruel. To be tough, you don't need to be mean.
It's great. And that's exactly right. And I mean, and look at anybody, just as a very basic example. Do you think Pat Robertson and Desmond Tutu are doing the same thing? Again, and again, you can have a broader objection to religion. That's fine. In some cases, again, even heroic. But if you can just reduce that either to, well, it's all Christianity and it's all false, or even just do kind of like mental gymnastics. Christopher Hitchens had a great, excellent debate line that was also totally empty and vacuous, where he would say, I respect Dr. King enough to say that he would be like a great leader even if he wasn't a Christian. The only problem was that he was a Christian, and his entire intellectual infrastructure, as well as the physical base of his social movement, was in the black church in the South. And then it was a interfaith coalition with people like Abraham Joshua Heschel, one of my heroes, that did the actual work. And then his intellectual infrastructure, because King was, in fact, as we forget many things about him, in addition to being a shrewd strategist and a political radical, was an intellectual, was a Christian intellectual with secular but also Gandhian and Eastern influences. So I'm not going to do a counter-thought experiment. It's like, hey, if Martin Luther King wasn't a Christian, he would be a terrible person.
He wouldn't have had the prominence and the acceptance from media that he got.
Well, the irony is that the material reality, which should be the atheist focus in my estimation, the material reality is he objectively would not have his prominence or success because the social base came from the church. But the rest of it is just pure speculation. It's like, okay, that's sounds like a compliment, but it doesn't mean shit. The guy that we had in this world was a Christian.
The other thing we should say about Judeo-Christian values as a term is it's just a transparently bigoted propaganda term, because you could have just said Abrahamic, but they want to exclude Muslims.
That's the tell. That's right. That's right.